Welcome everyone to a special part 4 of Comprehending Vibrations with me, Julien Wells, and my co-host Don Murphy. Hey Don. So I'm gonna get right to it. I was planning on having some fractal videos to show today, and my software for presenting is not I'm not up to speed with it, apparently, so I have a bit more to learn on how to get that working. I know we got a YouTube video working before, but it doesn't seem to work this time. You know what? Let's explore that. Because that's kind of what life is, exploring fractals, to be honest. And this conversation, I know it starts off as like, vibrations and this sort of thing, but really it's fractals because vibrations extend, expand, and as they expand, they become something else, right? Now, what you probably are not completely aware is when you hear a sound, you're never hearing a pure pitch, right? There's never like a pure sound like from like a bell whenever you hear things when people are like talking. It's almost always there's sort of like a little bit of like a ripply, like there's a couple vibrations in there. Like the idea of like when the water comes in from the ocean, you get a wave. It's a wave, but it's actually, and then, it all ripples and it's got a lot of, organic texture to it, you might say. And when you look at that, that is an example of a fractal playing out in such extreme variance that you wouldn't say, oh, this part of the wave looks just like this one. It probably looks very little like that one. However, it'll have a lot of similarities, more so than there were similarities from the last wave that came by. But I probably should start off with my little whiteboard and show what I mean by how vibrations are fractals, because I realize I sort of skipped over that part. Didn't quite get to the part where vibrations and sound, as we've been studying the waveform, actually manages to become a fractal. So when you look at a fractal long enough, like say on YouTube, those videos that are like where you zoom in and you keep zooming in, you see like new images every once in a while. That's what I wanted to show. But it becomes apparent how it actually comes to be in a more visual sense. So I've got my drawing board. I'm just going to test it, make sure it's working here. Okay. It's sort of working. Okay, good. Don, are you able to catch a view of the stream, which is a little bit late perhaps? Okay. All right. Yeah, I know you can't see this part of let me talk. Okay, great. So we talked about a wave where it starts such small variations that eventually it gets these peaks, these high pitches, and the pitches themselves have their own characteristic. And then what happens is maybe there's a little bit of adjustment here, and then it goes out and becomes a new wave. You've seen this sort of pattern before because you've probably looked at a heart monitor at the hospital. And you see this, it's like blip, blip. That visual representation is the actual electrical sensors that determine what sound sounds like. So it's like showing a visual of sound, right? Now, that's not confusing, but if you're familiar with this is your typical blip sound, like sort of waveform. So we've got blips, crackles, these sorts of things. You get these sort of shapes in the waves. Now, where it becomes particularly noticeable is in the high pitches. In the low pitches, it's practically imperceptible, like what's going on. So what they do is they don't run enough electricity through the speakers at the hospital machine for you to hear the low hum. But in some cases, you do hear a low hum from like the machine, from like it's reading its heart register. But generally, it comes out as a blip. Nowadays, there's actually it's much more electronic. It's an artificial blip. It's not the original blip you might have heard on the machines back in the 80s or 90s show or something like that, right? So, but everyone's familiar with this this sort of image, because this is really the story of all matter. Here's where matter is imperceptible. It's too low a wavelength on the left side of this. Only when it starts to get at these really crescendos here do we even notice anything. It's like our level of perception is like this. It's between these two lines. Okay? And basically, we see between these two lines. Our ability to perceive are between these two lines. Now, we know that there's vibrations going on that are too low for us to detect, and we know that some go too high, like they go past our ability to detect. But when you see this, you start to understand that vibrations, all vibrations are going on constantly, infinitely, cascading together in a great symphony, essentially. We can only view a fragment of it. This is within our perception. So maybe our eyesight looks at vibrations like this. Our ears interpret waves of sound. So it gives it as electrical impulses, and we hear it as a form of pitch, of electrical intensity, of screeching in our head. That's like the extreme versus the low end, which is basically as quiet as dead quiet. But as low as dead quiet may not be the quietest thing, as we're aware that, animals can hear things that exist in the physical world that are there, but we can't perceive them. It doesn't mean that the sounds don't exist, right? The same thing exists with sight. Just because we don't see into the high end doesn't mean that we don't see into the low end. Or it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, but the same thing with the low end, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We're only basically looking at, it's like we can only look at our world, which is like a cardboard box through like a hole, a small hole. There's so much to see inside that box, and even from many different vantage points of looking through the hole into the cardboard box, you're still only going to see so much, especially if there isn't a light source already within there. Okay? Now that's a symbolic way of looking at life and how there is much to learn. And if the light sources that we place inside the boxes are like angels and Jesus Christ and things like this, they help sort of like help you basically take a better look around inside. So high vibrations like light. We sort of like if you've ever seen a light bulb, get bright and go dim, you're basically getting what would be considered more photons coming out of it. But it's also based on electrical impulse, as most of those kinds of, those types of light bulbs that I'm mentioning, they would basically be an electrical current run through, I believe, a magnesium strip or iron, and then it glows extremely, extremely bright. So you're actually getting the chemical component of the light that's coming off the the vibrating heat. But that's just it. Is that heat itself isn't normally identified as as anything but just another level of a vibration of something. And heat itself is at the extreme limits for our fingertips, like our sense of touch. It's at the extreme limits. In fact, fire gets farther than the limits, so we can see things that are more bright than fire, and those are also quite damaging, right? Now, we don't put our hand up to the sun and burn our hands to the sun because our proximity to the sun is so distant. But put it up next to a flame that's kind of almost as bright, and you can be burned. Mostly because it's beyond your sensory perception, and yet it's so beyond and so needing to be understood that it severely damages the body in order to have that experience. So I'm going to erase this here. I want to show another thing with regards to the different kinds of waveforms we talked about. last time. I don't remember the names that we used for it, but essentially there are the kind of waves where it's a single point traveling like this. It's a little point, and that's how the light travels. I did a really crappy wave there, by the way. Looks like some crazy sea serpent. And then we have the other kind of waves, which are identified as a spiral, right? And the spirals get larger or they get smaller, but generally they only get larger. From our perspective, this is an expansion. We never get to see when it comes back, but these things, no matter how far they go, they actually always have a return point. The return wave, the eventual return point is when it's amassed so much expansion, it's expanded so much that it actually does not have enough gravitational force to escape all its creations, and it goes back and starts over. So it looks like it goes the inverse. Instead of increasing, it severely decreases. That's like the idea of like a sun growing to such an enormous size that it implodes on itself and becomes a black hole. Okay? Same sense of visual. Well, the way that it looks is, from one point of view, and mind you, this is just my current perception, and I would say severely influenced by the Pleiadians showing me this, is that we are a toroidal field, through and through. So that which expands in a circular format does eventually expand to the point where it returns down through, and then basically offers the expansion again. So basically it comes down and comes back out and becomes a spiral again. And that we actually travel through space as if the toroids move and we are a fixed point, a fixed experience as a single point on that toroidal field. And I'm drawing the picture for you, Don, so you have to wait to catch up. God, this picture is terrible. I'm going to do a little better here. So you expand, and then you come... Oh, what's this? That's my email. Okay. And until you come back down the wormhole and then shoot back out. So a point in experience is right in the middle. This is the greatest fully aware level of everything. This is like the point of nothing or the point of everything. It's the 0 point and it's the 1 point. It's the center of gravity for the whole toroidal field. I mean, it's the center point, and it's also the point of nothing because at this center of the toroidal field there is no definition relative to itself. It just is what it is. It needs the toroidal field to expand in order to take a perception of what it really is. And it goes around through cycles. Go ahead. Like, oh, as people perceive more like an apple type of toroid. Okay. Yeah, and the top doesn't necessarily end. It can look a bit more like a tree, right? And it's if it's pear shaped, it's like this. If it's apple shaped, it's more steep. I just happen to know what our actual angle looks like. Yeah. Yes, because when you look at this, I've got the vertical spiral here. There is always some that go off to explore, okay? there's always a very small minutia. So this is actually more like a line to a next line, like the heartbeat thing. You know, where's a... Oh, no? Say something again. No, that's not good. Okay, try saying something now.
Something now?
Oh, you should be there.
I'm there?
Yeah. Okay. So I can see the bar now. It's part of the I didn't have you as a microphone on the transition thing. So.
Oh, okay.
Anyhow, whether people caught that or not, I will redraw it because it erased my picture. This program erased my picture. So we go into like a spiral until we come back down again, and then we redo the toroid. And this is, we'll call it the human experience. This, we'll just put a little box around it. This is the box of the human experience. Now, does it keep going up? Yes. Until it comes to a point where it wants some real radicalness, and it turns into, you know, a new thing. Basically, this started here from somewhere else. It looks like our digestive tract in a really funky way. But really, this actually has a very poignant shape. Like, we actually have something called our heart timeline. Okay? And that's part of why I want to talk about vibrations too. Because our life is a combination of vibrations that makes up what we call our current moment experience. And I drew that dot in the middle of the toroidal field.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, that is the present moment. You're right in the middle. Nothing is anything besides where you are. And this, the dot is the perfect you. This is like the you is knowing itself as God, knowing itself as the entire organism. I know myself as the whole world. I don't know myself as the universe, but the whole world here.
Mm-hmm.
I see from here, I can see all angles. When you're out on a journey out on the fringe, you're calling it something this. You're calling this experience like this. When you're over here, you're like another spot on the apple, you're calling the experience something like this. Because as you look towards the middle, as you look towards yourself as everything, you have a very unique way of seeing it. Right? You can see it as a Christian, you can see it as a Muslim, you can see it as a New Ager, you can see it as a hippie, whatever. Wherever you are on the toroidal experiential field of vibration, you can observe exactly what's at the center of it. When you know it's at the center of it, okay, when you know more yourself as everything, somehow, depending how big this pit is, like how big a story this is to be human or be on Earth or something like that, however big that is, that's literally how big the vibration is allowed to be to go out of this experience, which is what we'll call our ascension from this particular heightened experience. Notice everything is getting really like intense. Very, very intense. And at the same time, a sense of peace is also coming too. Mm-hmm. Because this sense of peace is are basically saying we're not going to those limits any longer. We're not extending the toroidal field. We're not going with you. We're not buying it, basically, right? Like the degrees of being out there in the extreme at the middle point of humanity was great, but now it's like, no, now it's time to really go back to essential creation mechanics.
Right.
I'm going to draw another image here. And this is the dominant escape vector from a two-dimensional way of looking at it. And it goes like this. And then it swirls around, goes like this, and then goes something like that. But essentially, this is the plane right here. And if you follow this, you got another story where you've got this, which, of course, when you look at it, looks like a heart.
Right.
So this journey of the human is just a little dot in all that it is to be humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're exploring this. They're exploring the heart tangent. Pleiadians, their heart is like god awful like this. They're like big fatso hearts. Okay? We're a bit more your average ones. Now, because there's these big fatso hearts and they come in like this, they have this return trip here, they have almost no understanding of things that are not love. Like everything is love. Definition of life is love. Just call it love, realize it love, figure out what kind of love it is and how much love that is. Weigh it against other love, and love is all version of love. And basically, when you talk with a Pleiadian for any length of time, you start to realize it's a really popular word they use.
So calling it a big fatso heart is love.
Yes,
Okay.
big fluffy love.
Okay, great.
And we would say love for people who are really bitter is like the super narrow, we'll call tight ass love, that sort of thing, or the withered heart. It may even look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
But their tangents are when they go back down, they get a really big boost up. So you go down. I'm going to describe the timeline here. In the human heart line of following this, and you come here, you'd say, well, you need to go down before you get to go back up. And that's somewhat true, and that's kind of what's going on here. Many people achieved what is called the highest heaven that human life can offer, right? The highest heaven. And what they did is they came back, and then they left. It's almost like saying, in order to counterbalance my progress along this line, I return and serve, right? Because in this way, I'm returning to serve, but once you reach this, you understand time, you're actually going back to heal what you didn't heal the first time about yourself. So you sort of like live again to remove more limits. And when I say limits, limit is specifically what's observed by looking from the outside towards the center of the toroidal of everything of this world and this kind of human life. So your limit is exactly this sort of like bungee cord you have to however far you explored life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Life to extremes. And that's considered the limit. It's the point that keeps you from leaving until, like an elastic band, you go out here, you go out here. Eventually, you just let the truth of what this all is pull you in. You know, Earth is just a vibration of love, and you're an expression of love and creation until it pulls you back in, until it pulls you in to some degree. You don't have to become oneness, mind you. The heart doesn't converge right on itself necessarily.
Right.
You know.
Okay, so I'm not saying this to be smartassy, even though I can do that too. But the thing that's hitting me about the drawing and what you're saying is it's pulling me back to the story of the Grinch.
Oh yeah. How he basically had a small heart and then he basically expanded it, and it all happened like in a moment.
Right.
Right? Because he didn't know what Christmas was.
Exactly.
Right? But it's just the same thing. When you figure that out, you're like the first person to celebrate Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's all about giving. It's all about, showering the wealth that you see yourself as, less so than it's about the giving, right? It's about you perceiving the truth of your ability to give and to create into other people's lives in beautiful ways, versus the idea that I can't wait to get my stuff from people, which is
so Dr. Seuss was a Pleiadian.
I have a strange feeling he probably was.
Okay.
They are weird people.
When
you get to know them, I'm sure they probably won't get that weird with you on the first day they meet with you. It will freak you out.
I will.
Okay. So, because this is the same with regards to our ascension as it is real life, okay? As in, all of creation has to vibrate like this, otherwise we couldn't experience it. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Essentially what happens is we follow this same recipe for everything. As long as love is the intent for which to be perceived in a given situation, as long as you're looking for love in a situation, you basically get all the answers at the perfect way that you will wake up to this illusion. The illusion which is just a blip on somebody's heart monitor. Okay?
Right.
A blip in the cosmos of all time and experiences. Now, there is another thing that I got to show you, which is what happens when you're here. I'm going to clear the whiteboard. So you've got that little spring, right? You got the little spring. Doo-loo-loo, we're doing a spring, doing a spring, doing a spring, doing a spring. And we got the pop-off. This is where basically when they go back in and then they come back out, right? They go out like super powerful hard, right? They go out like a firecracker, essentially. So the creation goes in with so much energy and comes back out with so much more. It becomes like a gun. And not only that, sometimes it's so crazy because you've got like all these different ways in which you can still realize variations of heart and exit through this, because all you need to know is just enough that this is all there is to the physical human experience, or basically what love is for the human physical experience. That's enough. You have some idea that love is the answer for everything. Ultimately, if you see that in any possible way of describing it, you have an exit vector that's coming to you, and it basically shoots out. And depending on how much you actually believed in love the way everybody might be describing love, or just something along the lines, just being nice is considered good, you end up with actually these sort of like these firecracker effects where you go off into different kinds of worlds. And when you go out far enough, you say, oh my God, things are so different out here. Things are so strange. I have no power. I'm helpless because everything is so strange in these new ways of experiencing. It's nothing like my world. I feel very small. You start creating your world. You start creating by focusing on repeating things and creating your own little spiral like this. And everybody does their own. Everybody's got a little spiral. Ba, 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 ba. Everyone's starting to create their world, okay? Like this. Now, so you got basically like baby creations of reality, and you've got very different kinds. This one down here really sucks. But anyways, you get the idea that vibrations expand at a certain point, and depending on exactly where you take it, let's just say all you need to do to expand is realize happiness 80% of the time. Oh, God. I'm scaring myself with my drawing. This is terrible.
Yeah.
So imagine you're using 80%. Now you get to leave with 20% of your problems. Okay? 20% of your problems are going to be in your next world. Whatever you saw is not all that this world was. Okay?
Okay.
You can create with 20%, and you create a whole new giant, a whole nother vibration. You go off into this tangent. And so, like this original reality tangent, it went off into 4 different directions. Okay? Which means that, typically you could be up to, 25% off from everybody else. You could be up to 25%, in the upper 25% we'll call of loving, if that's the definition. If you're, if the exit pattern for this was 20%. But, I hate to say it, but this world is going to keep coming back until 100% of it, almost. It's meant to be a completed project. So when we look at the Earth, you can decide to start creating whenever you want. You could say, I'm going to take my 70% being awake to the idea that everything is, all one and all Earth, all beings are the same and everyone's equal and all this. I'm going to take that 70% resounding with that, and I'm just going to create another world. Well, you're not going to create a world that is any more than 30% different. Or, excuse me, you'll still have 30% of your world, essentially, not under your control. not under the kind of way in which you can understand how it's perfect and an alignment and it's good. You haven't really basically received the blessing for that. So the point for the Earth experience is to keep coming back, even if people, come back and only are doing a little bit of work each time, and their life is pretty heavenly. A little bit of difficulty is okay, but a lot of difficulty is not okay. It all depends. And so people are coming into choosing how to be a creator right now, and how to create, and how to observe the creation element. And so in the end, Gaia wants everybody to have learned how to create, because what she's feeling like she's doing is she wants to create something that is, ready to become like an Earth like herself. Like, she's a consciousness that doesn't think the way we do. It thinks like a billion people at once, because it once was a billion people coalesced as understanding itself as about 10 billion people. Okay? It's like the consensus mind of 10 billion people. We're doing the same thing. When we can actually believe, connect, and establish an awareness with 10 billion other people, we'll be able to create a world as significant and rich in mass the way Gaia did. Okay? Like, we can offer that, the same range of experiences to other visitors of any sorts. Okay? So the moment that you're creating, and mind you, there's many people here that already create, and many that are not. And I'm not talking about here, I'm just like this, this room, but many people who are not in the creator's seat, not 100. Maybe all they do is a doodle every couple days at their office meeting in their book while they're waiting for, mission statements to be, finalized or something. But even that is a degree of creation. And the truth is, there is actually a minimum requirement of creative potential needing to be realized. And that is, do you know what the number is? 50%.
Okay, I was going to guess.
Okay. Well, 51%. You need to do that if you want to live. If you dip below that, you'll basically age. And if you die here, that means you're staying here. I hate to say that. If you decide to die, and mind you, remember what we talked about death before, other people dying doesn't mean they died. If you choose to die and not continue on, after you see that you have the choice, okay, I'm not talking about, the idea that you could die right now and say, do I have to keep going on? You die in many ways, and when you die to a degree where you're really like, my body is just not going to keep up, or I can't do much with this anymore, I can't explore, I've got no options, I've tried everything, then you can say, fine, that's the end of that. And basically, you will not be recognized as creating another world. You'll be recognized as something that went down with the ship. Sort of like the cost of running the whole machine in the first place. Because of this failure, everyone knows exactly the wrong thing to do in order to escape Vector, which is be, the Grinch until he dies, or something like that, or Golem. He's a good example.
Yeah, okay.
Like you'll live forever, and you'll be a curmudgeon, or whatever. Remember in Star Wars, this idea that the dark side of the Force can be used to prolong your life, and keep you, so that you don't die. Oh yeah, you could do that, and that would royally suck because you would miss out on the whole purpose for living, kind of, right? And that's to explore love, not to just protect yourself. But it is a version of grounding, and because of people who are like that, who are grounding, who hold the great negativity, we know exactly what to do, because we would never want to do that. So we know exactly. All we have to do is not be like the worst curmudgeon on the planet, and we've already got our passport stamped. We're going.
Sure.
Okay. So.
Well, and we see that in stories again. Not just the Grinch, and not just Christmas stories, but A Christmas Carol, Ebenezer Scrooge. We see that transformation taking place there.
Yeah. Well, the official deal, I don't know how to explain why it's official, but these are the people that on Cloud 9, they explain this, and so does Gaia, as you have to do the 20 major points You have to live through the 20 purposes for existence that Gaia wants to share. She's created a piece of art here, and she's invited friends from all walks of life here.
Mm-hmm.
And her objective is that you come away from the Earth with a picture of creation. Basically something that is always a part of you going forward. You now have Earth like as a,
Right.
like a brownies, patch or something like that. Cub Scout patch. I was not in the brownies. Before anybody asks or starts shooting things up about that.
I worry you sometimes, don't I? What may come out?
Okay, so the point is, Gaia doesn't want us to leave until we've got the Gaia badge, which is we go through the 21 major points of the Arcana. Note it's 7 times 3. Okay, and when you follow the journey, it's called the Fool's Journey or the Hero's Journey.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Fool is 0, and you go from 1 through 21 or 22.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on what tarot deck you have. And you see that the hero falls. He starts from nothing, he becomes something, and then he falls. He trips on his own ego, sort of thing. And then he becomes a more aware. He's more careful. He returns to the world, and he's a better man, right? For having had his ego, trampled and seeing things from like too much of a non-consideration point of view. So then you come up, and then he feels he's perfected. Everything is absolutely beautiful. Nothing could be better. And then he falls again. And you're saying, what? Why would he fall again? Everything was absolutely beautiful, perfect. Well, actually, he falls the last time because if everything is perfect, he will not have something to bring to his next world. So if everything's perfect, he'll never leave.
Right.
Something has to be like a reason for saying, thank you, that's enough. I'm not living on you forever. I'm not exploring your depths any longer. It's good for me. So
this exploration, just for clarification, is it through all of your lifetimes here, or is it do you need to have this experience in one lifetime?
So you can do as many lifetimes as you want to practice these factors. Okay. But ultimately, in your last life, you need to demonstrate mastery over the 3 falls.
So it's like an oral exam, essentially.
Oral exam, literal living exam.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You need to demonstrate that by experience, okay, by having lived the experience, that you've seen the 3 falls of man. Okay? Mm-hmm. And once you've done that, then you can decide to take whatever you want, whatever you like from this world, and steal it and make a new world. Now, this was actually done for us by Gaia, okay?
Okay.
She already shed her skin of many things that will not continue to exist here, and actually don't exist here except for the extreme ones that remain as an example. Okay, she could not remove the greatest example of the greatest anchor, right? Because if she removes the lowest example human, then and she's removed all the other low-end humans, and there's only one left, you let go of him, that's like putting a pin in a balloon. You move on.
Okay.
Earth is no longer has a grounding rod for its existence. Okay, for the humans, excuse me. So that's where we talk about apocalypse. Okay, we talk about things that are going so badly in some way, just so chaotic that we have no idea where we're spinning off to. We have no certainty of what reality will turn into be. We have no choice in the matter whatsoever. Okay? That's apocalypse. Ascension is the extreme version where you actually leave the paradox. You leave the paradox by realizing that you create. You came into this human experience knowing you could create a lot, and then that was taken away from us, and then it came back again in the Druids and the Wiccans and whatnot, and then it was taken away again. And here's the cycle again. Do we know again that we are anything that we can be? We prove evidence of that as a humanity cycle That's why this humanity cycle is occurring in this place. That's why we're around so many of the people, because so many other people are getting it now. The reason why we're right here where we are is because we like people who have random crazy things to say each day, because that, keeps us alive. It keeps our, thoughts flowing and the experience growing and following extreme experiences for the sake of gathering a lot of wonderful experience. You notice how that works, right? Like everywhere. It's all about going from somewhere to like where it's sparkly and has lots of potentials within it, even if it makes you scared.
Right.
It's like saying, sounds funny, I've never been hit by a snowball before, but I'm going to ask you to throw a snowball at me. Once that's done, okay, you never have to do that again. The idea is that you explore to the degree where it's fine, and sometimes the first shot is very, very fearful. It's very, very fearful when you make that first step out and say, step out on the stage on your first, not even recital, your first, public performance or something, whether it be dance or, play or something like that, or, playing music. Stepping on that stage for the first time and showing that you can create can be very, trepidatious. So it's okay. Gaia is saying, look, you got the badge. You got the badge. If you got the badge, you can do anything. You've got it. You can handle yourself. So Gaia is trying to let us know, in subtle ways and very subtle ways for some people, maybe too subtle.
Right.
But that you can create, like we can create. And we're not just creating like, cities and stuff like that, but we can create with our minds. We can do sand sculpture instantaneously, like some sort of, skill from like a movie or something. So all sorts of movie powers, from almost anything you can imagine, from using Jedi skills to, Spider-Man web slinging if it needs to be. The point is, these powers come because you know how to create it into existence. Okay? You create these powers into existence because you fully believe it, and the better you get at learning that over and over and over, the better you get at learning that you create everything. You do it again and again. You're like, oh yeah, I do create everything, and then you can just like sprout like a tree in front of you in a second. Like you can create spontaneously, magically. Now, not everybody cares to stick around on Earth to see those kinds of powers. Okay?
Right.
Some people is like, hey, I'm taking the next train out. Y'all have fun, But when we talk about this idea that there are people who don't feel like they belong here, as many people do, they feel like, this doesn't make any sense. Well, there were some people that came from other worlds, like the Pleiades, and the Andromedans. They came from other worlds. And they were part of the human experience that was like Earth once upon a time. And they show up and they say, we want to learn what Earth has to offer. And any soul can do that. So yeah, you can come and check that out. And so they basically need to come in really hard in order to basically come out with the greatest riches. Because they're not going to start over from the beginning of time, right? They want to do it in one life, or 3 at most. Hopefully less than 3. And these are major timelines, right? You still have thousands of existences of you and whatnot, but the ones that you would consider like concrete lives, these are what you call your heart timeline, where everything went at the highest level of efficiency for the master plan of your overall ascension, sort of thing. Heart timeline. The reason why it's called heart timeline is because that's the one that feels exceptionally, if this could be so, let it be so. When you realize you're creator, you put your heart into it and it becomes so.
Do those beings that come in essentially come in with more stocked toolbox, for example, than those who were around?
Sometimes there's trade-offs, right?
Okay.
Let's just say you're trying to enter into the gravity of a planet coming by There's a lot of math involved in just getting into that, getting into the pull of that gravitational well. Okay? So in order to get into the pull of the gravitational well of significant enough for Gaia to consider you to land on the planet and be a part of this, whatever's going on this planet,
right?
You might have to come in hot if you want to get in before it's all over. So that's why a lot of the starseed people are showing up now, okay? Because they're going to get a part of that super party, right? That big bang, that big firecracker effect of, holy crap, we know ourselves as creators. So Arcturians are showing up so they can understand themselves as creator better. Pleiadians are showing up so they can show themselves as creator better. Coming in, they're going to get so much out of the human version of it.
Right.
They're going to go back almost like Superman to Earth. Superman just had a higher density on his planet. He came from one where everything was much more solid and rock, so he's like metal compared to humans. And because he's so made of metal, he's got super muscles because he can do more per ounce of oxygen than the people here. Why does he have laser eyes? He has laser eyes because anything that he chooses to focus on intensely can be disintegrated. Anything he gives direct attention to can be disintegrated. So using his eyes to focus, that's why it's like laser beams. You can do that as a creator. And of course you can fly because you can free yourself from any gravitational field you choose because you're a sovereign creator. So essentially, I don't want to say that Superman is a Pleiadian. He's more of an Andromedan, I would say. But it's that sort of thing. You come out with basically returning to the world that you came from, so different that you can explore your old world the same. So, if I was mostly Pleiadian, I could return to hang out with Pleiadians, but I would be some sort of like crazy rock star, and I might not want that life.
Right.
Right? So I might just go create my own little hobbit cave and live in my own hobbit town for the rest of, 1,000 years and just be all the people in that little town. Like I was in a play or something, or playing a video game even.
So okay, even looking at Superman though, or anybody else who's coming in, either as a walk-in or trying to fast track through what Earth Gaia has to here. Getting back to like the three falls that of man, can you go a little bit more in depth how that plays itself out?
Okay, so this is like when you look at the toroidal field, it's like you go in it 2 more times minimum. You can go around as much as you want and really not make any sort of like sharp turns. But within 3 lifetimes, you can do each fall. It's nice because then you do it and you physically die. It's ideal to die around that because then you can start fresh with another life for your second incarnation to get that done. Okay?
Okay.
Some people they want to come in like some crazy breakneck, Arcturian or something like that, comes in super hard and wants to do it in 1 life, like a meteorite. Well, this person's probably to everyone else like completely off his rocker or something, something completely nuts, totally and possibly very, very dangerous, like maybe some sort of murderer or something, and will come out, ascending, sitting the rest of his life in prison. So he comes in hard and then slows down his life and learns the lesson of what the impact taught him about all of existence, right? So he comes in hard, maybe he murders someone. He's like, oh my God, and then he's in jail, and then he's living out the rest of his life peacefully with time to contemplate what's going on. And from that vantage point, he can become sort of like awakened as well, right?
Right.
Or he does that and basically abolishes all the worst sins. He's like, I came in so hard, I did something so terrible, it was great, and now I'm going to spend the rest of my lifetime here. Life imprisonment can't be more than 1 life, because even if I've got, does something that's worth like, 3 life imprisonments, doesn't matter, I only got 1 life. So I'm in there for life. I go till I basically find myself too bored to live, and I die. And then basically I show up, and I'm a clean as a whistle. I can do whatever I want now. I can do things that would be considered negative because I studied what negative was, and I know what negative really is. Therefore, I can walk a negative path if I choose. I own that perspective. I know what that kind of fall is. And, the other two falls, I tried to work on them as much as I could in the rest of my last life. Like the ego drop, and, that's why there's a lot of shame things like that go on in penitentiaries, and, a lot of sexual things, because the sexual energy is very, very confusing here on this world. There was basically no tips or tricks to understand it, the sexual world. So there's a lot of sexual extremism for the sake of, from a soul's perspective, a lot of learning. Great learning in the process, like extreme learning, including people finding their true sensitive side, knowing that the sensitive side is like a very valuable thing in a penitentiary, right? It's like who's actually someone I can trust. They become very valuable. So even then, there's been opportunities, as much as trying to be a man and survive it like a man, there's be sensitive and become overtly sensitive to the degree where you can explore life almost as a female in a way, right?
Right.
And, no surprise that you get actual relationships in penitentiaries for a time. But the point is, these people that come in really hard, they sometimes have some really great things to teach us. Or they push our buttons to get things going. So even the bad guys are coming out, and they're coming out for the sake of, they wouldn't do this. They would not do anything negative if it wasn't for the eventual sake of the positive. No soul does that. The only soul that does that is a Gaia soul, which are lots of beings that choose to stay with Gaia because they just love it. Like fairies, for instance. They live a lifetime between 9 to 33 years, okay, of human years. But they just keep coming. They never want to leave. They just love it, love it, love it. They're silly of it. Of just, helping nature and animals and even bacteria and fungal experiences. They're silly with it. And so it appears they don't evolve in a way. But when you speak with them, they have a baseline standard of creation that can be far superior or better than your own, right?
Okay, but so getting back to the falls.
Okay.
Does each have a specific theme, or is it just...
Yes.
Okay.
But mostly in the way that like a typical lifetime of a human would be. Like you've got your childhood, right? It's very much like a child. You're kind of new to things, and you're like, oh wow, I can make friends, and and friends like me, and this sort of thing. And then there's the first time you're betrayed. There's the first time where something didn't go as you expected, right? And you have your first sort of like meltdown, like what just happened? Like as a child, generally.
Right.
Some people have in their teenage years. They have a really, really healthy childhood. They have parents that look after them incredibly. But there's usually one fall during that time.
So,
right?
so for example, like bullying could be out of the design of the experience.
Yes, and you feel very mortal too.
Right.
Right. You feel very humbled. Maybe you're the bully, and you feel humble all the time for the shame of it, or for whatever drives you into bullying.
Okay.
Usually it's the ego trying to defend itself, really. It's trying to say, ego, I'm worth something. God damn it. Everyone tells me I'm not worth something, and I keep listening to them. So I need to make myself worth something by basically being physically more imposing, which is a show. But it's true to some degree. It is.
Right.
But it's also a show because people can see that if it doesn't end with love, that's not what's really going on, right?
So so then the second fall would be for a different period in time in life.
Right, is almost the same thing, but later in life, where you have like this idea that like, man, everything is so good. I'm pretty sure I figured it out. Love was the way to go, but I still got problems. And this idea of like maybe losing your first job, you know, or being fired or something. That could be devastating because now that's like a major hit on like I thought I had this, or your first relationship breakup. You're like, what the hell? I thought I had this, right? It's much more sensitive.
Right.
Now it may not be as sensitive as the first hit. Like maybe you saw, something lecherous when you were 6 years old, and that blew your mind open. Your life's going to be one of those kinds of tangents if you had a very intense childhood. Everything else can only pale in comparison, because, you know, you take a stronger hit on one of the 3 deaths, you get less of a hit on the other ones.
Right.
Right? So it doesn't matter. You can weigh out how you want to hit all these however you wish. And many people are holding out for the 3rd one. And that's unfortunate, because the 3rd one is your last shot. It's the last kind of crisis that basically takes everything away from you. It really does. And so some people can call that an apocalypse. Everything taken away from you. Maybe it's a financial apocalypse. I don't know. But it's not egoic. It's this sense that everything, it's like asking you, if you don't know how things come to be by now, we're just going to have to take everything away from you until you figure that out.
Right.
Okay? If you haven't figured out now that you're creating, we're going to take away everything that you conventionally know on how to get things. We're going to take all the resources of how you functionally believe things get to you, and now try again. Try creating from here.
Essentially, turn the Etch-a-Sketch over and start again.
Yeah. Okay? Now, the funny thing is, like I said, we're in a gravitational well of the experience of Gaia. If Gaia doesn't have gravity, then we don't have an experience here. Let's just call it that. Gravity is essential, right?
Right.
And gravity is anchored by previous concepts of existence. Okay? So Gaia is modeled after the sun. Okay? So it's basically a very sun child. Yes, we do have a molten center, and yes, there is an Agartha, but that's another story. That's looking at the experience vibrationally from 2 different ways. But so Gaia has this inner flame, right? And we also, being born on this planet, will explode in our potential by following the inner flame. Okay? Many people have done it before, and we call it passion.
Right.
At this point. The heart of passion, which is that excitement for expansion. And saying, freedom or something. Americans
so
choose freedom.
if you get that passion, you feel the flame, okay?
Right.
And you find that point. Are any subsequent falls necessary?
You'll blast through them.
You'll blast through them.
You blast through them.
That's boom. That's
it.
That energy.
The whole point is that is the exit strategy. If you can actually get the passion of the intensity only comes from that direction.
Yeah.
You find out it's always love. Like the exit, every time I come around here and I see love, that seems to be like the way out, you know? And you keep going around and looping around, you know, day in and day out. You have various, you know, time loops of its own nature. And you're like, oh, love seemed to have worked today. Love seemed to have worked today. Love seemed to have worked today. Love seemed to work today. But you never really see it until you see it enough, right? And it's such a small, like, thing. You don't ever assume it's completely certain, and that's the point. Love can never be completely certain because it's not the greatest truth. We gave a birth, a wide berth of options of how you can look at love, and you can look at love a lot of different ways. Very large number of
but
ways.
Then is it observing it on a grander scale then that's necessary?
No.
Okay, so you can still experience those small day in day out things that you're experiencing, and you're going through that, but you don't have to expand it on a greater scale to see it manifest within the population or what have you.
No, you just got to do it yourself. You focus on love, and sometimes it's hard, but the game you can play with yourself is, where's the love in this one?
Right.
And you lose if you don't get it, so don't lose. And don't call yourself a loser if you lose too often. But the point is, you'll be like, oh, I'm losing. What can I do to make this game easier for me? You might take up meditation, for instance. Okay, I don't want to lose. I need to focus, meditate. What is the golden benefit from this? You know, that might be how it happens.
Well, and then it's getting back into that slowing down too that we were talking about in the last show.
Yes. Now, the thing is, you can't live without the passion. You can't live without the flame. It is the heart of the soul coming forward. It's the vibration of light manifest as heat. Okay. You need to live at, you live at, like, what is it, 98.6 degrees. That's the rate of fusion. You're a fusion reactor. Just like the center of the earth, and just like the sun, Okay? If you don't believe it, you think you're full of water, well, there's still fusion going on constantly, energy transforming all within you, and that's seen in the temperature of your body. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you're a fusion machine of 98.6 degrees. Okay? Now, when you find it difficult to maintain that 98.6 degrees more and more and more, then you're at risk. And so that's when you get like a cold or you get the flu. You're at risk, right? You could die from this if you don't focus on recovering. If you just see, the hell with it, I'm just going to keep treating myself bad, blah, 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 blah,
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it'll kill you. Even the common cold can kill you if you ignore the signs to get well.
Right.
So really, that's what it is. That's what love is. It's like, and the only reason why it's at 51% right now is it wasn't always at 51%. For you to get out in the exit point and not reincarnate again, like no karma, at the time of Jesus, you had to be like Jesus or his greatest disciples.
Uh-huh.
Okay? Which is like really loving. like that's really, really loving. Right? But in this lifetime, as long as you're focusing on love more than not, you will gravitate towards 99% love. Does that make sense? You keep focusing on love, you'll see it as like the ultimate solution for anything. Much like the Jedi see, the light side of the Force is the solution to everything, everything eventually. And the Sith sees like, chaos and destruction as like the purest form of, creation as well.
Right.
They're both right in their own ways. The Jedi actually are there to preserve and keep the thing intact. It's the Sith that create vastly new realities.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, if they're doing it from a fear that they never transition, they're just going to create the same one. Which is what? That fear-mongering, power, sovereignty, just, big, might makes right, that sort of attitude.
Right.
Right? Assuming you leave believing in that. You leave believing in that, your world's going to have that. Right? Your world's still going to have power-mongering. Until you find a way of saying power-mongering, that's a good thing. And then, when I see why it's good, but, I've got other things in my toolbox I'd prefer to use. It just becomes sort of like a brick you removed from a Lego set.
Mm-hmm.
You might say it's like the lynch piece. It's right, it's the lynch point piece. It holds the whole thing together. It ties the whole thing together. Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe you take it off, and you can use that for a different creation. Or you can literally remove it once you know that what it was a benefit for. Like you say...
So it... you see a lot of people that are more aware or have started the process of awakening. Whether it's through Facebook, whether it's through other things that you come across, and people are exploring all these different things. But sometimes a little bit of awakening, you get stuck because you're denying the negativity. For example, when those that want to fight the cabal and really arrest everybody and send them to the central sun and just devastate all those things. The point that they may not be actually engaging in is the fact that it's about understanding the effort and the energy that went into creating that as part of the whole creation.
Yes, because
and because you can get stuck in that point and make it and not make it get you your escape velocity because of that.
Right, but
even though you can envision entire ecosystem and planet and everything else where everything is hunky dory and wonderful.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily going to do it for you.
Correct. But it's nearly impossible for us to witness people experiencing that timeline anymore. It's really, really, really low. The reason why it's very, very low is because we're nearly at our exit point. Does that make sense? Or did I just lost you? Call him back here. Alright, I must have dropped off for a minute. So the answer to his question was, when you basically explore those three forms of death, and you know it, then you have basically the momentum, which is, we call it momentum to leave orbit and go to another world, and go and create another world. The only reason why you do that is because you have the momentum that goes off and gets to do that. And the momentum, it literally is the lessons. It's the gravity of the physical experience. It's the graveness. It's, what puts us on our grave. It's what makes us age. What makes us mortal and makes us believe we can die. Okay? The gravity of things. The things that are trepidatious and overwhelming. Once we see ourselves in that, and that can mean that we live it ourselves and we promote it, like killing, things like this. When we see that, we can basically understand how successful it is, knowing that if you keep trying to make things, or keep going in a direction of hatred or evil, how far does that actually get you? And you get to witness that firsthand. How far does it actually get you? And there's a point where people hang on stubbornly to that idea that it's getting them somewhere. Okay? Fewer and fewer people are like that now. That hatred is going to get you somewhere. So by simply playing out the test faster and faster and faster, that's why people are saying time is speeding up. Okay? It's because our minds are speeding up. Or rather, everything is speeding up relative to our mind gaining peace. And at peace, we don't see the contrast. We don't see the problems so much. We see just the overall larger picture. And so we can answer parts of our lives from broader perspectives now better than any other time. And it's just going to get easier and easier and easier. Now, I know you say, people are not waking up. They really are. At least from my perspective, I'm seeing a lot of it. I'm seeing certain culminations near the end of this year in my reality. Certain culminations. So, regarding Judy's question, are we near the exit point? Okay. There is a way to actually figure that out. Okay. And that is when you've passed a test, you can change everything. When I say everything, that's as good as leaving the planet, okay? Because everything pretty much changes if you decide to go with a species off the planet. So that, or you can have like super magical powers, Yoda powers, Jedi powers, and you can do all that here. Okay, but there's a fundamental. In order to get those powers, you need to know the ability to focus and develop and create. How to work your mind like a muscle and do things like telekinesis and learn to trust yourself. Finding out that trusting yourself means that you are actually listening to your broader state figure things out. It's almost like stepping back. It's almost like stepping back and witnessing. Oh. How do I turn this off here? Just close this. I got a little window that says my video won't start. Where was I? Can you hear me, Don?
I can hear you.
Okay,
yes.
So my point is that when you go forward any way that you can possibly imagine, there's really no wrong exit point. If you go in any direction towards love, you're getting there faster. When you're able to make love out of evil, okay, you go really, really fast. And so right now, it's almost like evil has shown up to get its blessing from you in order for you so everyone can leave. Because the thing is, you're always your arrow tip to your reality. You always need to feel it inside first, as much as you can, even just pieces of it, and you're going in the right direction, and you will get it show up in your outer world. You're the arrow tip, always. And so before you see it on your outer world, you'll see it on your inner world. And if you see things on your outer world, like, hey, that's awesome, that's because that's a combination of things you already like. Right? It's like a mashup. Oh, I like this person, I like this person. You get to high school, oh, it's somebody that's both. Oh, has both those qualities. Yes, you can look back at your life and realize that things have gotten optimized for you without you even trying, constantly, based on your general preferences. That is assuming, of course, that you believe in the true nature of positivity. If you were bemoaning the fact, you'd find out, oh my God, I'm creating everything as well. Like, oh my God, I got mad at this person. This person punched me today. Like, how did that happen?
Right.
Of course, what you're focusing on, you're still getting it. So you can go either way. The truth is everywhere. But the extremes reveal it faster. Okay? Because, maybe you're a farmer and you're like, hey, one of my cobs of corn didn't grow today out of my whole field. Oh well. No big contrast there to wake you up. I'm just saying, it's like, contrast gets things into perspective. And I want to say there are people who are very awake, and they definitely look like they've done a couple of these deaths here. But until you have the final death, you really don't get to see the biggest picture of yourself as a creator. Because when you are as a creator, you can create. I can't stress that enough. You will have evidence, and it won't even matter. Somebody say, prove it, and you can prove it. Okay? When you can prove it to another individual, then you have the capacity to live with other individuals with that ability. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Because otherwise, you're the only one that's ever going to have that power, and that's fine. You're the only one that will ever have that power, and you're the only person that will ever understand you. No one else will ever be able to understand you. Completely. Maybe in part. But you'll always be alone until you find that way where you can find a way to express and share that exceptional thing that you've created. Now, some people think you gotta be like some sort of salesperson. Is that what I'm asking people to be? Like, sales pitch? No. Everybody has a story for their DNA that's different. Okay? Some people, they may have to sell themselves like a used car salesman and try to make people excited about the worst pieces of crap. Maybe that is what they got to do. But others will find it as simple as offering a smile and seeing what happens.
Right.
And that's all they got to contribute to be at the tipping point. So when I say tipping point, I could look at the rest of this year and say, people don't ascend. There is no Big Bang or whatever. But then technically, I'm not acknowledging the Big Bangs I've already had.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people, they probably couldn't be here if they didn't have some Big Bangs. So, the Big Bangs come long before the smaller crackles. Right? Long before humanity gets it at large. Okay? It's going to take somewhere around 20 years for everybody to truly see themselves as a creator. But at the point where everyone sees themselves as a creator, you know how that world is? We have no idea. That's where there's the last bang. The last bang lasts hundreds to thousands of years after this.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a new kind of reality that surfaces after 20 years, 2030, something like that. Around 2030. Around that time, there's a whole nother creation. It's like completely different. And that's up to you, too. So if you want to be here for that, that's fine. I know some people want to go imminently. But you still need to match the vibration of, guess what? A reality that's not here. You want to go with Pleiadians? Guess what? You got to start being a Pleiadian.
Yes.
That's how it works. Magnetically, they're the only people that are bothered taking you there. Okay? So there's lots of wonderful Pleiadian messages. Are they perfect? They're perfectly Pleiadian by whoever the Pleiadian was that said what it said, which is plenty of flaws, mind you. Okay? In many ways, we look for perfections beyond the Pleiadians do. Trust me, I know this. They're coming here to explore imperfections. And they're expecting it before 30 years, before 2030. They're expecting to show up here, start surfing and bad-mouthing people and see if they can get away without smiling. You know? That's what they're planning. They knew they were going to get the great party. Show up at humanity's growth here. Like humanity's big wake-up. You know? It's like a baby learning its first words. Hey, it's your first birthday. That's what they see it as. The difference is, again, we're like Superman. When we learn to be a creator, we can go up to like a Pleiadian as if we were like the Incredible Hulk and just go pink and then go flying. Just like in the superhero movies. Because that's kind of what you become. I mean, I'm not saying it's exactly like that. I mean, I've seen a lot of Marvel movies and read comic books, and I'm not suggesting that's exactly how it is. But it is very, very similar to this, Qigong master that no one can approach because you could smell him from a mile away. It could be that, okay? And it could be other incredible things like growing wings and dimensional traveling to the world of Avalon and reliving times of other realities temporarily and then returning to your life, like temporary time traveling. All these abilities are there. And rightly function on this planet. There's nothing that we can create that we would be able to do to destroy the planet. So we're not creating atom bombs, like, rah, like in some crazy X-Men movies nowadays, I could destroy the world with these powers. Nothing like that, mind you. When it's like that, they basically say, get out of here. You're kind of spoiling it for everybody. There's planets that can deal with your nutso-ness. And what happens? What? Like the super brigade come in, they pinch you, they pick you up, they're way tougher than you, and they put you on a prison planet. And then you live out like your superpowers, blah, 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 superpowers there if that's how you want to be destructive and do things with it. That's fine. It happens all the time. And Arcturians are notorious for doing that. For basically going too far with the creational powers, before it's not fun anymore. And surprise, there's a lot of Arcturians here in the Ascending groups. Yes. They're going to wake up fully too, and they're probably some of the most entertaining people you could be around. But we've gotten off track enough, I think, here. I know there was a couple of questions, and I didn't talk about pitches, which is what David Wilcock talked about.
Right.
I talked a little bit about it on Tuesday. But essentially, pitches are those noticeable blips in the, at the point of, on a vibrational scale. It's that blip that shows up like on a heart monitor, like from before. And those things sometimes need to be extreme to be noticeable. Because the things that are extreme, normally we may not care about. Mm-hmm. Okay? If it's extreme enough, it's going to change us. So those people who are already sort of like awake and I love nature and everything, no problem, man. You can go be one with nature and wake up that way. That's fine. But what's going to happen here is the version of waking up that's going to happen here is going to be very technological. The society is very into technology, very into gadgets, and very into computer chip design technology. They're very much into energy consumption, so they're going to learn all about that, all this. And so, many people come here and they say, I just want to live in the trees. Great. And whenever anybody gets a little lost, they'll bump into you and you'll remind them how to come into balance again, perhaps. But there's people who are living the technological advancement.
Right.
In certain areas of the world. We'll say the Western world, things like this, right? Now, in another way of looking at it, there's this way where you can get even more, learn more from this world before you leave, and that's trading in your life as an angel. Okay? So an angel is a person that goes through life and tries to help people as an occupation. Like that, they're doing it for the sake of helping other people with their troubles and helping them sort of wake up and gain insight that they might not have been in because their paradox is too gravitationally pulling them down. Like they don't have a moment, to think about something advanced,
Mm-hmm.
They're just lost in the chaos too much. So angels show up and help people get unconfused about it all, how it all works, and they find ways of doing that. Now there's angels of spirit nature and there's angels of physical nature. There's angels that are very, very powerful, and they can be both. They can manifest bodies, basically. Basically all the archangels and tier 2, 3, yeah, just not the tier 1s. Anyways, if you want to further your journey, you can also be an angel for this current reality. And basically help people get that everything's fine. This is just how you're building, and if you want to learn how to build, you got to start to master some of these abilities to focus on your problems and be okay. Now, it doesn't have to be great, but if you're okay with that in your life, then it's okay in your world, and it'll be a part of your created world. So if whatever you're okay with, okay. Anything you're not okay with, that's what you're dealing with right now and for the rest of this year. And for some, another 2 years after that. But really, find a way to deal with that, and you'll be okay being a creator. Some people are still trying to learn how to be a creator before they learn to be okay with creating. Sometimes it's like law of attraction before balance, and balance before law of attraction. It is, in various margins in between, right? But you're getting people now who are masters of law of attraction. Like true masters, teaching, all sorts of places. They're doing this. And they are showing what people can do without being superheroes exactly. As the superhero thing becomes like the theme of the X-Men, people who transform so quickly, they're like mutants, and we don't know what to do with mutants. We're afraid of them. We feel oppressed by their capabilities.
Right.
So we're not manifesting so fast. It's best if everybody becomes a mutant all at once. One of those plans was kind of ideal. However, it also would cause a lot of chaos if everyone had mutant powers all together on one day or something. But there's the simplicity in everyone having it equally, isn't there? You don't have to figure out what you would do.
Exactly.
You've got a million other examples of what you could do.
Right.
So you don't have to know how to become a pure Zen, highest meditation guru, touching the light with your mind. You got plenty of examples all around you all the time of great things to focus on, wonderful feelings all around you. You can, it's a lot easier than it's ever been.
You can see how that plays out, for example, with people who maybe are doing a little bit about what we're doing, or the David Wilcox or the Steve Beckos of this movement. When they come out with either a prediction or an insight that they may have for a future event, and there's not a perceptible showcase that it actually happened, they're attacked. It's and that's not, that is an expression of a superhero ability, I think.
Yeah, superhero
in my
feat,
opinion.
Yeah.
It is. And
an ability is an ability that you can repeat on at will.
Right. And for example, I saw David put a Facebook thing up yesterday where he had mentioned about talking to the producers at Ancient Aliens, saying, where they're telling him he's going to be a celebrity, and he's telling him he doesn't want to be a celebrity. And then he wrote a thing about the synchronicity of running into, I'm thinking it was Kylie Jenner, who if I ran into, I wouldn't know. I did. Okay. But he ran into her a couple hours afterwards. And he was putting out that information that this is what happened. This is the synchronicity that followed, so that other people can maybe learn from it. And man, it's just straight down Facebook. It was just people ripping him about sharing that, and the ego and the whole thing. And it's risky. It's challenging.
Not only is it challenging, but some of us have like a destiny where we're compelled to do that.
Well, yeah.
You know, so even then it's like, oh, I can't even. It's in my best interest to do this.
I know.
It kind of sucks when you're supposed to be a fool, but it's ideal because a fool's a very good place to start.
Yes, it is.
You know that if you experienced the fool in your life, and you expanded, you had various deaths, you sorted it all out. And the easiest way to do that, and I never really brought this up, is you could go look at the Major Arcana for the tarot and look at their definitions, and if they all resound and feel good within you, like you have examples that you could talk to in your own life and say, yeah, I came out with a good result there. I came out with something I feel like I would share. Like it's a good thing for me and my outer world to have had that, for me to have had that experience, because I can talk about it exactly as beneficial as I need to, right? And sometimes it's not that you did the experience right or wrong, it's how you review it. It's how you look back on your experience that actually matters.
Right.
Not the actually how you did it. So you can scrub big time, and if you can look back and say, good things happen there, that's the real win, actually.
Yes.
Because it is about realizing that excitement is how anything really got done. There is negativity that can get things done, but excitement does it 51% of the time better. Only 1% of the time better. It sounds lame, right? Actually, we're moved at this point. It is 70 to 80% times better to follow love than to follow fear. And that's where humanity as a whole, like all humans at this time. So look at it that way. What are the odds people are going to figure it out? Oh, yeah, I just got to, follow excitement and happiness and that sensation, and I get to build everything I want exactly how I wish it.
You're seeing that as it plays out in various aspects in society. Those that are moving with fear and using that as their predominant way of creating are having less and less success.
Yes. And mind you, if everything was done for the sake of absolute purity, you'd be done exploring.
Right.
It's about understanding what maybe is impure in relational experiences, so that the impures can be seen even better for what possibilities await a balanced individual practicing these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So when you look at the idea of ego, that's important. It's very important. And you could say it was more important in the past. Maybe. Right? But it's just as important a parameter for creating a world. And you know what that means, right? Because the world that David's creating, he's got a lot of people going to join him.
Right.
A lot of people are going to join him and still spit at him for creating it so screwed up, if that's what they think it is. They still focused on him and said, you're still most likely, or you're still whatever I'm giving my most attention to, and they get David's world. That's fine.
Right.
If you see no flaws in it, please join him. But the same thing holds. You'll never fully exit on someone else's experiences. It'll be yours. You can only be shown how well it works for others, maybe, before you believe that you can do it yourself.
Right.
So, following your excitement, following your joy, basically seeking the best thought at any moment that you can. Always following the best thoughts that you have available to you.
Well,
if you do it more than 51% of the time, you're guaranteed a ticket out this lifetime. I'm just saying this lifetime, whatever that means to you.
Yeah.
You want to go fast, know that you're practicing a higher percentage of, or needing to practice a higher percentage of seeing the good in things. That's all there is to it. And some people are going faster than others, but for the most part, everyone here who's in good health is going to be there. Like, no one is going to basically have to leave your life during the awakening points. Because what you awaken to, if you appreciate someone, if you actually appreciate someone and you want them in your next world, you don't want to feel like, oh my God, I'm evolving so much more than somebody else, or I'm going, my mind is so high, I don't care for these low vibrational talks and stuff. If those things are things you don't engage in, then no. Okay?
Right.
But if you want some people to come with you in this world, they will come with you, if you accept their vibration, if you accept them for who they are. So guess what? Gaia did this some time ago. She created a new world. We didn't understand it, but it's kind of different for each one of us, but it's relative. She created a new world for us. She gave us a hard template, and many of us got to live on that template all at once. Many, many templates, but suffice to say, they all fit together like a grid. Okay?
Right.
That's like, different cultures around the world. What would you do now? What are you going to do now? And everybody got them. They're like it's like somebody changing the phone book without you knowing that it was changed or if it's updated. You just pick up the phone book. You assume it is the correct phone book. You just assume it is. But that's, anybody who's a true creational master can be very sneaky and not let you know you've stepped into another reality. And that's what Gaia did. She wasn't really sneaky. She actually told a lot of people, you're on a new earth. You're on a new earth. You're on a new earth. Well, how many times are you going to say it? You're on a new earth. You're not where you were. So when doing so, the result is that everybody has more opportunities to see and more opportunities to practice.
Well, look at it from the like a track and field perspective.
Okay.
If you want to do the 100-meter, you've got to go fast.
Yeah.
In order to be in that race. If you want to do one of the longer races, I don't know what they are, but the mile, or I don't think they run the mile anymore. But you're gonna move at a different pace. If you want to do a marathon, and that's what you choose, you're gonna have to run a different pace. You're not going to be able to do a marathon at the same pace as running the 100-meter dash.
Mm-hmm. And you've got to prepare. You got to prepare
and
your body.
All of those are available to everybody who chooses that sport.
Anybody can get there. They might say, my body's born small or something. I don't have long legs.
Mm-hmm.
Get faster in other ways.
Exactly.
Don't say it's just got to be the length of your legs is like defeats you. Mm-hmm. Have more efficient muscles.
Right.
But people don't get them. Well, that's your problem. If that's your belief you're holding on to, that's the muscle you need to exercise out of.
Exactly.
It's psychological. You'll note a lot of Olympians, especially, they all have psychological tools.
Yes.
All have psychological tools. Mental affirmations, upbeat music, famous people's sayings, from like Abraham Lincoln, stuff like that. Just things that just feel very honest and powerful. That's it. They could do supernatural things. We can too. And since we don't want to spook everyone out too quickly, make it look like some X-Men mutant show, people will develop these powers as they feel they're able to comfortably have them in the public.
Right.
Okay. And there's going to be goofballs. There's going to be people who are just like, I would never do that. I would not choose that. Then basically you don't give them the time of day, essentially.
Right. But everybody, and I think once you realize that everybody's playing a fool card too, once you get to that position where
everybody has to have that, yeah.
Everybody has to play the fool card, and then it makes it easier to embrace your own fool.
Mm-hmm. And you can every day you can use a tarot card and pull out a card. It'll tell you exactly what today is going to be all about.
Right.
Where you are in the loop. Just pull out one card. What's today for me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I got my guidance. Yeah.
Perfect.
We're going to wrap up here.
Yeah, this is...
And I don't have a lot more to say about vibration. The point of vibration was to eventually talk about the cycle of the vibration, and the fractal nature does lead to its own exit point, yet not eliminating everything from where it was, right? You're not just...
Right.
That's like dying and just going to another planet. Just go ahead. You're going to have to die to do it fast.
If you missed the first part of the show, watch this on the replay, because that was very interesting.
Yeah. Anyhow, there might have been questions in the chat board, but we've already gone long. Longer than I planned to. And we'll see everybody next Tuesday.
Thanks, everybody.
For our next episode. And thank you, Don, for meeting me tonight. And
thank you, Julien.
and thank everybody in the chat room tonight for pitching in
Yes.
and being a part of the explorations.
And helping out. Yes.
Yes.
Great questions that we got to.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Good night.
Okay.